Hey there, welcome back to Cyber for Hire, the managed security podcast. Once again, I'm Bradley Barth with SC Media. We just spoke with Michael Maiora from InfoSec Labs on the topic of incentivizing MSSPs to expand and diversify their tool sets. If you missed it, I would strongly encourage you to make sure to watch. But right now, I'd like to welcome back my co-host Ryan Morris from Morris Management Partners, because it's time for us to examine our InfoSec news and trends topic of the day, presenting our big idea in security: the impact of generative AI on cybersecurity. The advancement of artificial intelligence and machine learning has for years been both touted and feared in IT and cybersecurity circles. Still, the sudden emergence of the generative AI tool ChatGPT seems to have sneaked up on a lot of people. While ChatGPT can be leveraged as a tool for good to help write Yara rules or uncover vulnerabilities, it can also be misused by malicious actors to create convincing spear phishing emails or write malware. And while the tool's ability to generate code can be useful to aid developers, it can also unintentionally create more vulnerabilities. In this segment, we're going to look at why MSSPs need to stay ahead of the game and develop policies to address this emerging technology on behalf of their clients. So Ryan, we're going to jump into it here. We knew it was coming, but was it still a little surprising to see how quickly ChatGPT exploded on the scene? And do you feel like cybersecurity professionals are even close to being adequately prepared for this sudden emergence?
I think that's the point. The speed, no matter how many times the researchers tell us that AI does not learn at human speed, it learns at continuously accelerating logarithmic speeds, right? No matter how many times they tell us that, we're never ready for how fast this stuff comes on. I don't know how much of your life you have invested in the last 5 weeks in asking ChatGPT to give you things serious, silly, and otherwise. But I think that there are a lot of technology professionals who are legitimately surprised, not just at how the usage has spread, but at how legitimately capable the resources are, right? When it first came out, it was fun to ask that tool to, give me a response on a technical topic and then format it in the tone of rap music or in iambic pentameter, right? It was fun for a couple of days, and then we started to kick the tires, really kind of stretch what those capabilities are. Recently, I read that there's been more individual user requests and prompts submitted to that just in the year 2023 than all of the technologies combined history before that, right? It's not a brand new tool. It's been coming, it's been in development for a while. And in just the last several weeks, the hockey stick curve happened. And so I don't think we're prepared for it, and I don't think we understand, to your point, the good or the bad that's associated with what the potentials are here. But I think we need to get ready for it because it's not a game. It's not just a toy. And we cannot imagine in an industry as competitive as this that ChatGPT will be the last or the only of these resources that comes out. I can think of a few other chat vendors and search vendors and such that undoubtedly have resources in development that are about to be launched. This is a very short window, but you can't understand everything about it. You can't ask it everything in the world. But as professionals in cybersecurity, I think right now is the only opportunity we're going to have to really get educated on what this means in the cyberspace.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're right. You can go down a lot of rabbit holes playing with that tool or playing with some of the AI generated art tool sets that are out there as well too. But it's not all fun and games. So let's talk a little bit about the scary side of things. For those MSSPs that conduct security awareness training for either themselves or for their clients, are they going to maybe have to remodel security awareness programs to account for the fact that phishing emails might start to become a lot more difficult to spot, fewer errors, more convincing, urgent prompts? And will we maybe even have to move away from the idea of human detection and maybe have to rely, ironically, more on AI and analytics to find AI signatures using AI to find the AI?
See, now we're going into a new dimension of reality, right? The multiverse indeed. The AI is the problem and the AI is the solution, but the innovations happening around that I think are just a little bit faster than industry is prepared to proceed, especially at the end user level. I think the single biggest problem, it's not the sophistication of, like you said, of the phishing messaging that this tool can create. It is volume and variety, right? It used to be that, I would have to sit down and write out that email message. And if English was not my first language, it would be almost immediately recognizable as a not authentic message that was coming through. But now, not only can I make it sound plausibly English as a native speaker, not only can I make it subject or domain relevant, right, to the vertical industry or the individual business of the target, but I can come out with literally thousands of varieties on that same technique in a single hour. Right. It's just, it used to be that there was one, there was two, and we might be able to keep up with that using manual detection techniques. Now, just a little bit of variety in the prompt. I can ask it to tell it to me in this way, in that way, change it for this, add another detail, and literally an infinite number of those messages are generatable by a single individual. So volume and variety is going to almost immediately make obsolete the manual technologies that we use, the manual effort that we use to actually identify these things. It will need to be automated, but I'm sure you've seen out there what's just instantly frustrating about this is, well, ChatGPT is going to generate the content. So how do we identify it? Well, we can build in a pattern recognition technology that is used to watermark, if you will, what the outputs are and be able to instantly identify what the neural engine is producing and give a high degree of confidence that it's not written by a human. But then almost the very next day, we heard about an exploit that said, well, all you need to do is use a macro approach in the code and insert a zero volume space before every instance of the letter E. And then it would break the pattern recognition. It would render it completely unidentifiable. And now the AI tool can't recognize its own output. That's where it's going to be really interesting, right? It's not just the AI that's going to create the problem. It's the thinker, the human using AI as an accelerator that's going to make it happen, right? We live
Yeah.
in a world where the bad guys are not dumb. These guys, they know what they're doing. They have clever exploits that get through in a phishing campaign every single day in some customer environment. Now they can just be infinitely variable and have more quantity than we've ever experienced before. That's going to be overwhelming to the manual labor.
Yeah, for sure. It will be a game of one-upsmanship, and the like you said, the big concern is going to be just the sheer volume of these emails that can be generated, while at the same time still being customized as needed in large volumes to various victims to potentially make the social engineering more convincing. And then you add to that the fact that maybe not just chat, but a combination of or text, the combination of text with graphical art to be able to do things like adding photos, logos, graphics that make it look like it might be coming from a legitimate person and a legitimate organization, kind of helping with that whole deep fake technique as well. All things that need to be considered.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, right, we know that spoofing as a technology, there are tools out there. You can spoof anything, right? Visually as well as by the content and the volume. But if we're going to be serious about how to manage this stuff, we need to identify some volume control capabilities in AI itself. I would argue that the visual believability of the messages is going to be a vector that is going to surprise a lot of people, right? It's not just that the message is there, but you read it and you think, no, I swear that's totally real. It's their logo, it's their font, it's their letterhead. Everything is real, and that's going to cause a ton of problems. I mean, every single one of us knows an otherwise very intelligent person who has at some point fallen victim to a phishing or a spoofing technique. And these are non-technology professionals. These are, CEOs or CFOs or just, senior executives in business at the end user level. Boy, I don't think we're quite prepared for how realistic it's going to be very soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. Excellent point there, Ryan. And just sticking with some of the, the scary side of all of this, we also understand that tools like ChatGPT can be used to write malware to code, as well as writing more chat-based texts. Now, supposedly there are restrictions in place that you can't outright ask ChatGPT to create a malware. But as I had mentioned briefly in one of our past episodes, when we were going over some news items, there are researchers that are already saying there are workarounds for this, where maybe you can't ask it to write malware, but you can ask it to write or code certain components or pieces of malware, and then later assemble it all together to actually create that malware that you were looking to create all along. So is this going to create all sorts of new headaches in terms of malware detection and forensics as well?
Absolutely true. I think as an industry, we surrendered the naive concept of signature identification as a primary technique. In virus or malware identification, we gave up on that a long time ago because just the proliferation of quantity. And when there was one new piece of malware a day, maybe you could publish a library and use it to identify things. Not at this pace, not using these technologies, but the workarounds to be able to get non-code professionals to produce actual software, malware, in either the good sense or the bad sense, right? It writes code. And I think if you just think of it in the model context of object-oriented programming and development, if I ask ChatGPT to just do something malevolent right from the beginning, it's been, at a social level, it's been told that's not nice, don't do that. But it has no idea what you intend to do with this piece of code combined with that piece of code. So I don't need to have any background or skill in a programming language to be able to generate fairly capable and sophisticated software for good or for evil. I have friends in the who are coders by trade, and they are sincerely impressed with the capability. Right, one guy I know was developing an application that he had originally deployed for a browser window on a desktop, and he wanted to port that over as an app into the iOS world, and he's not a Python full stack developer, and he was trying to teach himself just YouTube videos and such as we do. He's trying to learn it as he went, and he said he could never ever get it to compile, but take the code and put it into Chat GPT and say find the error, and it would clean things up literally instantly. And he was able to go through what he had been spending 2 or 3 months on, and in less than an hour, he got a successful compilation into an iOS format with very legitimate and sophisticated technology. So we can't just chuckle and write this off and say it's a fun tool. No, no. This is And imagine this, right? I think as just kind of a final note, as we're looking at what the capabilities for bad are, this is only generative AI that has so far been trained on publicly available internet scraped information. Imagine what happens when we take this and apply it against private data sets that we can use for, whatever malicious code we already have. We can take that generative concept and apply it to our private data set. I don't think we have any idea about the iterative capabilities that this is about to introduce into the malware world. So, again, the only thing we can say is best to be a student of this today so that you don't get embarrassed when a customer comes and asks you, how do I solve this problem? And you give I don't know, I'm not an AI expert. You'd better at least be able to sound like an AI expert in
Yeah.
cybersecurity in the next 30 days, or this is just going to steamroll us all.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, maybe moving away from the purely negative side of things, here's maybe a little bit more of a gray area in that there's obviously a lot of potential for developers to use this tool also to help them in their day-to-day jobs. And you alluded to that a little bit as well. But at least in these early stages, there seems to also be concern that for development teams that maybe misuse the tool or over rely on it to code and program, that the generative AI may actually end up introducing a lot of vulnerabilities into your work and into your projects, which is going to result in a lot more work on the back end for your DevSecOps folks, your application security folks, just spend more
Yep.
time poring over the code and fixing those problems. So, how do you strategically
Terrific
make
point.
policies to address that?
I would see. I think you hit it exactly. It has to be a policy thing, and it has to become a professional standard within an organization because we all like a little boost in our work, and if it can make me more productive, if I can hit a deadline that I'm just buried and I can get this, I can hit my next sprint milestone, and I don't have to do all of the manual labor myself. If it's available, you're going to use it. But the research already shows very clearly whether it's generative AI or whether it is just the supplemental capabilities of code libraries and, think GitHub and stuff like that out there in the marketplace. The research shows very clearly that there are some fundamental flaws that get reintroduced in terms of code integrity and application security. Things that, you've been developing for years, you know better than that. Don't do it that way because it's easily exploitable. But the AI doesn't know that. It doesn't have the benefit of context and experience yet. It's going to be more vulnerable, right? We already can say with confidence that AI generated code, while it can be capable, it is very vulnerable to attack. And so either we just have to say, don't do that as a professional standard. I don't believe that's going to work. Or we have to say that we need to have an entirely new QA layer of activity before any code can be published, right? I just think in the spirit of all of this technology, the very important unanticipated area of vulnerability is going to be DevSec in an application development world, right? As we move into low code, no code as a very popular platform of application development, business IT, citizen developers that don't have that kind of robust experience and background, we're going to generate infinitely more applications than we have ever created as an industry. And if they are AI generated, they're going to be fundamentally vulnerable. So I just think as a standard rule, QA becomes mission critical. I hope it was always a sincere part of your pre-ready for release candidate process, but it becomes literally mission critical at this point. We can't overlook that in terms of application development.
Let's spend the last couple of minutes of this segment just looking at the bright side of things. For MSSPs, What do you see as maybe being some of the more immediate wins for them using Chat GPT and similar tools for white hat applications?
Absolutely. And while again, you can be very sophisticated in the way that you apply the technology, the immediate opportunities are going to come into security awareness training and documentation, right? The most advanced security professionals really don't enjoy documentation, and application developers are notoriously not the first ones to volunteer to go back and write down the manual code of how to use what I've just created and how I created it and go back and showing your work in the math problem. We absolutely can use these tools to address documentation challenges, especially when it's not just used in a public environment, but if you think of it, the model of licensing Chat GPT or something like that into your environment, marrying it with your private data set, and then using it to generate documentation. Chat GPT, ironically, is really good at technical writing, right? It might not be the most fluent in terms of like poetry or prose or persuasive writing, but it's really capable around technical writing. There should be no more excuses to not have accurate documentation in our software world and in our security world. But security awareness training, as I mentioned, I think that if they can use it against us to create infinite variety in terms of the phishing messages, well, then there's no excuse to have tired, outdated, easily identifiable resources inside an awareness training protocol. It should be fresh. There should be brand new examples and attack threats that we use in training every single day. Literally, it's now no longer let's just license the capability and do some training once a month, once a quarter, roll it out. This should now become an always on evergreen capability. Doesn't mean I spam my people for awareness training every single day, because they'll literally seek me out and attack me if I do that. But any individual employee, any given day, can get any new type of training introduced into their environment. I think it makes it much more realistic. It makes it much more of the moment. And I think that if the bad guys are going to go that direction, the good guys need to go there as well. Excellent. So that's all the time we have for our big idea in security this week, but we still have some additional news items and the rundown that we're going to go through. But first, we want to do a segment that we like to call Dear Cyber for Hire. This is an advice column in the relationship management field between MSSPs and the clients that they work with. We know that these relationships aren't always perfect, so we want to provide an opportunity for you to learn from others' negative experiences so that you can find ways to improve your own customer relationships. Remember, we're not going to out anybody here. The following letter that we're about to read has been dramatized and anonymized to protect the innocent, but the conflict represented here is oh so real. So, Bradley, if you would take it away, give us our latest piece of drama.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, we've got some juicy MSSP melodrama for you today. And this one comes from the client side of the relationship. So, guys, cue the music. Dear Cyber for Hire, I am aghast and afraid, for I fear my MSSP partner is becoming dangerously unstable. One by one, the members of my provider's extended family is mysteriously disappearing. At first, I suspected foul play, but now I realize the hard truth. My MSSP is struggling to retain key members of their team. And as each employee abandons them for greener pastures, my provider is getting stretched very thin. What is it about my MSSP that seems to drive good people away? Why can't they attract new help? Despondently yours, Helpless, in Hartford. This is a tough one, Ryan. It's a competitive market. You can't really control your MSSP's your partner's hiring and retention practices, can you? So what do you do here?
You know what? This is a lesson of mature marketplaces. In the beginning, the innovation, the technology, the new capabilities, that is the difference and the key to success. I can do something with a technical skill and product that nobody else can do. But once that is established, it's adopted, it's widely standardized in a marketplace, the winning is less about being technically advanced, and it's more about the human side of running a business. None of us in this industry is surprised that we are having a bigger issue with this even than other industries are. There is a desperate shortage of professionals with cyber skills. We've talked about that before. Hundreds of thousands of open positions, and not nearly the pipeline of people coming through university or industry training programs to meet those needs. There's not enough of them. They're in high demand. We are more focused on this than ever. And as technical professionals, we tend to be terrible at the squishy parts of human management, right? I tend to think that in our industry, that's the new threshold of competitive advantage. Can you recruit people in and scale to meet the needs and the opportunity of your customers? But also, can you keep the ones that are already there? It's a question of culture. It is a question of inclusion and buy-in to the mission and the objectives of the organization. But it's also about making people just feel a part of our tribe. We are the kind of people who do X, and we do it not only because it's important, but because we like each other and we trust each other and we want to show up and do this hard work every day. The more technically capable we are, the more naturally we seem to struggle with that part of the relationship management. It's not a nice to have function anymore in this industry. Managing the humans even above and beyond their technical capabilities, I think that is the new front in the competitive battle.
Excellent analysis there, Ryan. Now, do you have any specific advice for this particular client that seems to be in a little bit of a pickle here in this situation? How can they maybe resolve this issue, or at least how can they communicate their concerns in a meaningful way to the MSSP?
Two sides of this coin, right? From the client side, absolutely positively talk about this elephant in the room. Do not assume that your service provider has it under control and things will be okay. Assume, for safety's sake, that they will have problems keeping people, even if they're good at relationships and culture. They might not be able to stem the tide of just competitive salary escalation and the recruiting away of these good professionals. That's assume it's going to be a problem and deal with it head on. Do not take your service provider's word for, oh no, it's fine. I have another guy I'm interviewing on Thursday. We'll fill that gap. It needs to be topic number one from the customer's point of view to ensure that they are relying on a partner who actually has the basic human bandwidth to meet the service requirements. From the MSSP's side, I think this moves into, I will say, two fundamental things. Always be recruiting and make sure that you are managing the work-life balance and the human implications of what we do, right? On that first side, the average time that it takes to find, interview, recruit, and secure, and then onboard and deploy a technical professional, that cycle is longer today than it has ever been. And if you wait until you have an open job requisition to start the recruiting process, you're toast, right? You can't recruit fast enough. Always be recruiting. Even if your team is full today and you don't anticipate any net new requisitions coming up in the near future, never stop recruiting, because you just can't keep up with the speed there. And the other side, remember, it's not just technically hard what we do in cybersecurity, but It's hard on a psychological, interpersonal level to see the things we do, to recognize the threat that we deal with, and for a guy who lives in the chair, being a cyber professional every day, to just recognize no matter how hard I'm trying today, I'm falling further and further behind every day. We need to give these folks a hug, metaphorically speaking, right? We need to make sure that they feel okay. And feel okay is the least scientific and the least technically advanced thing that any of us will do today. And that's where we need to be good at it. If we just assume, you know what, they're good at their job, they're trying hard, they know what their metrics are, they're doing things every day, they may show up literally tomorrow and just say, I can't take it anymore, I gotta go. Or somebody just offered me twice as much money, I gotta go. We need to make sure that that is part of our number one agenda, that we are stopping and asking people, not just, can you do the job, but are you okay? And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, if that makes you feel weird, that's just an indication that it's even more of an issue in your organization than it is for people who are naturally more comfortable with that emotive side of the human experience.
And quite frankly, who doesn't need a hug now and then? We all could use a hug.
Exactly.
But hopefully our listeners have learned from this and you don't make the same mistakes. And remember, if you've been struggling with your managed security services relationship, whether you're the user or the provider, we want to hear from you. So please write to us at cyberforhire@cyberriskalliance.com, and we might use your letter in a future episode. In the meantime, though, as any security practitioner can tell you, there's no shortage of headlines filling up the cyber news feeds every single day. And so we wanted to highlight a few items that we curated just for you. And so we present to you the security detail. All right, headline number one for you, Ryan. Tech jobs are becoming less desirable among young professionals. What's the deal with that?
Just when you think it is safe to go outside again, what we've just been talking about, it's literally, we don't have enough of these people and we can't find enough of them. And now, in a report that was provided by the folks at Axios, they've notified us that young emerging professionals are prioritizing the concept of work-life balance as a high priority in getting a new job, but their number one factor that they're looking for is stability, not pay, not complexity, not adventure and opportunity, but stability. And none of us is surprised that the tech industry right now is not perceived to be the most stable employment opportunity. This is something we really need to be paying attention to, and I think it's only going to make our jobs harder in the recruiting side. So please be good at recruiting. Next headline for us then, Bradley, I'm looking for your insights on this headline. Global cybersecurity market is expected to hit $300 billion in annual revenue by 2027. Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a headline this week from MSSP Alert that is citing a report that was actually issued late last year by Research and Markets. It notes that throughout the forecast period of 2019 to 2027, the cyber market is projected to achieve a compound annual growth rate of a little over 11% throughout that forecast period. And among the reasons for the optimistic growth projection, the growing adoption of cloud computing, increasing regulations in the InfoSec space, and of course, just an overall demand for security and privacy in light of the scourge of cyber attacks that businesses must contend with on a day in, day out basis. So just some interesting market findings there with some insights into what might be driving it. Headline number 3 for you, Ryan, which is cyber chiefs face increased security and challenges in 2023.
You know, as a counterpoint to exactly where you were just going, we know that the cyber marketplace is continuing to grow and budgets will be increasing. There is no other established market of technology that is experiencing faster annual growth rates, but not in 2023. right? We know that the economy is weird. We understand that there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty on the financial side of things. And as a result, the security chiefs inside end user organizations have been told, we're not going to cut your staff. We're not going to let go of anybody because we know that we need to have cybersecurity capabilities, but you're not going to get the planned increase either in headcount or in budget for acquisition of tools. That's the forecast for 2023. Flat, and as a result, do more with less. That sounds to me not only like a massive headache for the end user CISOs, but it also sounds like a tremendous opportunity for managed security service providers. Because if your customer cannot build up this capability internally, they're much more likely to turn to you and actually look for those kinds of service capabilities less expensively than they could do it on their own. So bad news, good news as we look to this from a financial point of view. Next headline for us, Bradley. The January 11 nationwide FAA ground stop, which we all unfortunately have heard a lot about. Believe it or not, it was not caused by a cyber attack. So, Bradley, why are we bringing this up if it's not a cyber problem?
I'll tell you why, Ryan. Now, this dates back to mid-January, but still worth mentioning here. The FAA blamed contractor error for a crash that disrupted its Notice to Air Missions, or NOTAM, safety information database, which led to that nationwide ground stop that halted all the flights on January 11th. Now, as you said, not a cyber attack, but reportedly, the damage that occurred to a database file wouldn't have occurred had the FAA's new NOTAM system been in place. You see, the company had been working on modernizing the system since at least 2018, but the project has been beset by delays. The lesson here is that it doesn't always take a malicious actor to result in a systems disruption. Incidents can happen simply from taking non-action with aging legacy systems, from a lack of having redundancies, and from just basic human error. These are all things that need to be accounted for, whether we're talking about an MSSP's own systems or the systems of a client that perhaps in need of digital transformation. When you delay on modernization, bad things can happen. Systems can break down and fail. They can become vulnerable to exploits. They can reach the end of life support. So that's a lesson that we can take from that.
And in the spirit of closing our circle on the conversation today, for a research note, please refer back to the Top of Mind segment at the very beginning of today's episode, where we discussed the threats from third parties in business relationships. It's a massive issue. We all need to be paying attention. And hopefully it doesn't cause another nationwide ground stop.
I would hope so, especially you might get stranded in Athens, which I don't know, maybe you would like, actually. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting
be okay
stuck
with that one.
That's right. Well, finally, we've got, drum roll please, our irrelevant news item of the week. Now, this is a real news pitch that Ryan or I have received in our inboxes for reasons that are entirely inexplicable to us. But we'll see if somehow we can make it about cybersecurity. So are you ready, Ryan?
I am always ready for these. They never cease to amaze me.
All right, well then here comes the pitch. Dear SC Media, I'd love for you to consider Duke and Dame, the salted caramel whiskey with only 1 gram of sugar per serving. Now, Duke and Dame was founded by two friends who worked in the corporate finance world and decided to pursue their passion of creating a whiskey for everyone. They felt there was a hole in the whiskey market for a salted caramel flavor, while other flavored whiskey options that were available were loaded with sugar. Now, there's actually a nice story behind the brand, Ryan. They say they're a small Black-owned business successfully fighting for shelf space against the big brands. That's great. That's the nice part. Here's the problem for me. I have been to all 3 whiskey meccas, basically: Scotland, Ireland, Kentucky. I have done whiskey distillery tour tastings in all 3, and all they tell you is this one has a hint of grapefruit. This one has a hint of chocolate. No. they all taste like forest fire. At least to me, they do. So you can tell me it tastes like salted caramel. I can't tell the difference. Maybe the whiskey fiends over at Paul Security Weekly would roast me for that. They have the acquired taste for it. But for me, it's all pretty much the same. Irish whiskey, maybe I like the most of the three. But I don't know. Are you on board with me on this, Ryan? Or are you more of a whiskey guy? Can you tell the difference on this kind of stuff?
Yeah, you know what? As a self-described whiskey aficionado, I'm going to say not just no, but hell no to a salted caramel whiskey flavor. Now, I agree. Good fight for them. Please keep doing the yeoman's work out there, competing in the marketplace and expanding our offerings. But if it actually does taste like salted caramel, that might be the worst thing to happen to whiskey in years and years and years. Like you, I've been to all three of those places, and I have absolutely enjoyed my experiences. I would not be friendly to somebody who offered. And by the way, I'm a big fan of salted caramel. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy that in very many contexts. Not in my whiskey. Thank you very much.
Well, now we have a whiskey maker here that claims that there was a hole in the marketplace, right? And now they're filling it with this salted caramel flavor. So again, that might be true, and it might be great. People might really dig it. Now, what I want to know though is there a cyber equivalent where you tend to see a lot of cyber solution vendors out there, let's say, who claim to be offering something that no one's ever done before, filling a gap in the marketplace, at least for some people, but at least for some people, they just see it as it just tastes the same like forest fire to me, like all the other solutions that came before it.
You know, innovation in software and technology is a bona fide field of human study and advancement. Marketing innovation that gives us ostensibly new capabilities just for the sake of being able to say new and improved, that's not necessarily such an esteemed field of human endeavor. I would say our industry we are absolutely as vulnerable to this as any other consumer marketplace, business to business marketplace. I see announcements from cybersecurity vendors all the time where they say, and now with 32 flavors, and now with salted caramel, and things that are in the user interface. Maybe it's in the way that they manage data types, and it really doesn't alter the functional capability of the software. Cybersecurity is hard enough without introducing marketing innovations and calling them new and improved. I would appreciate it if we could all just kind of stick to the plumbing of let's make this stuff actually function better, not just have a salty caramel taste.
All right. Well, I will toast you a glass of salted caramel whiskey to that perspective, Ryan. And with that, we are out of time. But don't worry, everybody. We will be back again soon for episode number 8 of Cyber for Hire. Meanwhile, feel free to check out even more cybersecurity podcast content on the SC Media, MSSP Alert, and Channel E2E websites. Until next time, I'm Bradley Barth.
And I'm Ryan Morris. Please reach out to us via our show page and our email address and let us know your comments, questions, and insights about the business of cybersecurity. We're eager to keep this conversation going with you in between and during the next episode of Cyber for Hire, your inside source for cyber outsourcing.